to welcome you. There we go. There we go. Welcome you to the first opportunity for the relationship doctor. That would be you and your significant other in the midst of the sun. I told you all on Facebook that you would see this again, and you are going to see this again. I'm excited about the opportunity to start off with a session that I think is going to help you. And I've literally called it 5+ things. It's 10 on my list, but it's way more than 10. But 5+ things that might be the reason why you're not married yet. So I've already clarified who I'm talking to. If you are married, may the Lord bless you and keep you. Not talking to you today. I'll talk to you later. But if you are not married and you want to be married, and I'm really talking to, let's narrow this down even further, not to the person who has that boyfriend or that girlfriend and you're moving in that direction. You're headed there. If not, then there's a whole other piece. This might help you. But I'm really talking to the person who is waiting for Mr. or Mrs. Right to show up, and they have not shown up yet. That's who I'm really focusing on. So if you know somebody who is that, then they need to hear this. When it's over, send it to your other friend, because it's easy to talk about what the opposite sex isn't and think that that's the reason, when in reality, my friend, the real reason is far deeper than that, and we can get that worked out if we can explore where we are. So we're going to start first with a word that you heard when you were getting around the 12, 13-year age about growing up, also known as maturity. And maturity, Dr. Edwin Lewis Cole said years ago, does not come with age. It comes with the acceptance of responsibility. I'll say that again. Maturity does not come with age. So even though you're 12 at the time or 13 at the time and you feel that those hormones are telling you that you're grown, your finances say otherwise, your emotional intelligence says otherwise, because maturity does not come with age. It comes with the acceptance of responsibility. So with that in mind, maturity is what we're going to focus on as one of the reasons, the very first one that we're going to deal with. The first reason that you are not married. The number one reason that you are not married has to do with finances, or excuse me, with maturity. And we're going to take it across the financial field. We're going to also take it across the landscape of your soul. And we're also going to take it upon or in the area where your emotions live. So we're going to talk about maturity in those three areas. So once again, we're not talking to you if you're happily married, you're doing great, or you're about to be engaged, unless you need to mature some more, which you could. This is the place for you. But I'm really talking to Mr. and Mrs. Hopeful, who has not really found the person yet in that dating app, or you've gone out on one date, and this is your before you go on your second date moment for you to think about some things that relate to you. So number one, maturity has not reached a person's soul. Let's deal with this for a minute. If you're not maturity because of the lack of accepting responsibility in your soul, then forget about that person not being right. They have nothing to do with your soul developing. You have to develop your own soul. And you know, or perhaps you don't know, that your soul is invisible. It's one of potentially three parts of you, two parts of you for sure, in the context that you have a soul, you have a capacity. And when it comes down to capacity in your soul, it is comprised of your mind, your will, your memory, your imagination, and your emotions. Now, if you're a lady here, emotions speak to you differently than do emotions for a man. For a man, his soul is often and primarily fed by his logic. You, my friend, if you're a lady, your activity of maturity is fed by your emotions. There's nothing wrong with emotions. There's nothing wrong with logic. It just depends on whether you are a male or a female. What is important, though, is to understand how you respond in certain situations in your soul. And if your responses are off, you're not going to attract the person that wants to marry you. It's just not, because you're putting him off. Why? Because his or her soul is struggling with yours. So let's take a look at this first thing, that maturity does, if it has not reached your soul, then you're not married. And it could be that it's simply not time. Some things just take time. And until you reach that point in your walk, that time has now given way to maturity, then your soul is not going to process what is necessary for you to move into dum 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 and this mode right here. And not just to be there, but to be there joyously happy, to be there committed to the relationship. So number one, because we got a lot to cover in this little window, I'm not going to even go more than 30 minutes, and I'm already how long into this? 5. Wow, already. So if maturity has not reached your soul, it's not time for you to be married. So one of the reasons, number one reason that you may not be married yet is because it's not time. And why isn't it time? Because your soul is not mature enough for a relationship. It may be mature enough for a date, but a date and a relationship are not the same. An engagement is not the same as a date. Marriage is not the same as engagement. They all have their places in stages in your prep for marriage, or if you are already married, it's a continuum in some certain regards. So, how do you process in your mind? I told you that your soul is comprised of your will, your mind, your will, your memory, your imagination, and your emotions. How do you process in your mind? I'm not asking you that to tell me that. You can type it in the chat if you desire. But the main thing I'm asking you this for is for you to ask yourself, how do you process? Do you process guilty before you hear information? Do you process you're guilty before anybody else gets a chance to talk? How do you process? We could spend a month on the way you hear, on the way that you process what you see, on the way tones affect you. Like some people are still dealing with what happened when they were a kid, and they're bringing that into the relationship. And they think it's not time for the other person, when in reality, it's not time for you because your soul has not matured beyond the pain of the past. So you've got to know how you process. Do you fly off? Do you berate? Do you close in? Do you shut down? You got to know how you process, because if you don't know enough about you to be the best version of you, which means someone possibly could take advantage of you because you're still developing and they're using that as leverage to get their way. Listen, you don't want to move into marriage if you haven't figured out some things about you. The first one of these is maturity. How do you process in your soul? That's number one. We have 9 of these to go. So I'm going to have to move a little bit quicker. Number 2, maturity, again, has to reach your soul. That's the one, the big elephant here that we're dealing with. So number 2 is, how do you view the world? Through your eyes, what you see, and then from a visionary standpoint. How do you view the world? See, the way you view the world has everything to do with how you will interact in that world, to include the dating world, to include the getting married space. How do you see? And then how do you envision? This is critical to how you process. If for you, the glass is half full, then he might not ever be able to do enough for you, or she might not be enough for you. If the glass is half empty, there's a different viewpoint. You can reverse what I just said. If she's never enough, half full. If everything is kind of ready and it's really not ready, but you view it as ready, then the version of the way that you go through life has everything to do with how you're going to view that man. See, if you're looking at BMWs and titles and how you look in front of other people, then your eyes are not mature. And mature, again, let's go back. Maturity doesn't come with age. You can be 40 and still 20 mature in terms of your maturity. You can be a kid still because the trauma is still alive. And because you've not dealt with it, it has grown an orchard, dropping the kinds of fruit you don't want to eat, but it's everywhere on the landscape of how you see things. And if that's how this works, then you got to go to the eye doctor. Now, that's a whole other thing. That deals with our coaching program, which we're not talking about right now. We're really just talking about 5+ reasons why you might not be married at this point. And it has nothing to do per se with the other person. We're really at this point talking about maturity inside of you. And if maturity is not in place, you're not ready because it's not time. And it may not be time because maturity doesn't come with age. It comes with the acceptance of responsibility. My goodness, we are almost halfway through and I am not done with section number 1. So let's quickly move on to maturity has not reached you yet. If it hasn't, you don't have to tell anybody. Just know it. Just know that it's true about you, and then let's work on it. So let's get to the next thing. How do you routinely grow? For this, we're talking about the taste and the will. The taste. How do you grow? Because if you don't know how you grow, you may avoid it. You may not know it's happening when it is occurring. And that's necessary for you to move from the date to the engagement, to the wedding, to the marriage, more important, to the marriage. And when you're dealing, for example, with maturity as how it tastes, I don't know about you, but taste buds do change. When you wake up and realize some things after a while, everything that tastes sweet isn't good for you. But it tastes good. Yeah, I know. But everything that tastes good is not good for you. And so it is. If you are still emotionally tasting, using your will as the basis for moving forward, and it's only about the taste and not about the substance, then a lack of maturity is hindering your ability to really understand by way of taste what you're dealing with, not just who. Let me put this in another way. He always says good things about me. He always says good whatever. He always says this, that, and the other. Is it possible that he also says those same good things to somebody else? But because it tastes good to you, you don't care that it is tasting good to somebody else. That's because the will has to be engaged at a more mature level than just what it tastes like. I hope you are getting this. Because if it tastes good because he always buys you something, or she always does something for you, she cooks for you, whatever, whether you're a male or female, my point to you is, if your taste buds, which is your will, has not grown beyond where it was when you were 12, then you're going to really taste what it's like to look mature, but not be mature. And that need not be you. Maturity does not come with age. It comes with the acceptance of responsibility. We're running a little bit behind. I got to move on to the second thing here. Why you're not married has nothing to do with them. It has everything to do with you. So let's take a look at you. First, we looked at maturity. May not be time because you're not mature yet. Let's look at number two. Maturity in this case is in the financial literacy area. Financial literacy. I know there's a lot of talk about, well, what kind of job does he have? Or what kind of job does she have? What kind of car does he or she drive? And I get all of that. But financial literacy is beyond the one wow that people get when they are impressive with what they're driving. I'm not against what you're driving. Drive whatever you want. But if the wow is the only reason that you bought that vehicle, you only get one per person. And it's not a lot of folks that are going to look at you with a wow, because most folks don't know you that you drive by. But if the goal was the wow, then financial literacy might be missing. It could be a reason why you're not married. Because as you think in your heart, so are you. And if you think one wow, you might be thinking one night, one kiss, one encounter. And if that's all you're thinking about, you ain't ready. You're not ready for marriage. If the look to get the wow is the reason why you're with the guy, because of your Facebook friends or your Instagram friends or your TikTok friends, my friend, you are not ready to get married. Because if the wow is your win, you've already lost. And the reason you've lost is because you don't sleep in that car. And if you are sleeping in it, you're already in trouble financially. So maturity in the area of finances is important. So here's the first big point, even though you got about 3 in that. What is your financial awareness? Get it now? With low monthly payments? That's not how marriage works. Marriage does not work with one low monthly payment, but get it now. No, you got to get a lot more about what you are worth before you start selling your goods, your services, yourself to other people. That's for another training. We'll talk about those trainings later. When you deal with your value, you have to take a look at what you're currently spending your money on, because that tells you what you value. And if you're not mature in what you buy, you might not be mature in what you're selling. And if you're selling the wrong version of you, you are attracting the wrong person to make the purchase. I hope you get that. Let's keep it moving. Maturity, if it has not reached you in the financial literacy area, if you don't know how to talk terms, if you don't know how to talk currency, if you don't know how to talk how to keep more of what you spend or what you earn or gain, if you don't know how to keep more, then it's possible that in your relationship, you're attracting a person that knows how to take. Even if it looks like the person is giving, they're ultimately getting if you don't know the terms and financial literacy. Check this out. What is your financial plan in terms of saving? I mean, naturally, actually. Is it 2% of your income that you save? Is it you make it and spend it? What's your financial literacy? Because let's just move you, lady, into the wife position for a minute. And you are a flat out shopaholic. And you're spending all that BMW money that man just made. And now you don't realize you just created some issues because you've not taken the time to mature in the financial area, to realize that you really don't have an unlimited source of income. You may have unlimited potential, but the income is a finite amount of dollars or yen or whatever country you're listening to and whatever the currency is there. But when you talk about understanding that there is a need to be mature when it comes to how you handle what comes to you, you have to be a good steward over that. I don't remember the number of programs I've watched, my wife and I, where the wife is sent in advance to buy the house. And the husband's like, honey, whatever you want. I mean, she's putting a lot of pressure and responsibility on the wife's shoulders. Of course, they did the video chat thing and take a look, see what you think about that. But it's really him trusting her to go out there and not overspend when he has to then sign the mortgage, unless of course they pay with cash. So if I were you, I would just start reading some books, really, because the books that you read indicate a tendency to grow. And you want to be able to grow as a wife. And if you are a man and you just make the money and you don't care where it's spent, you need to read some books too. And I'm not going to recommend any to you. I want you to find it. Well, I'll give you one. And this is not directly connected to how to manage finances, but it will give you some thoughts, things to think about. It's called The Richest Man in Babylon. That book will change your life when you realize the small effect of small things compounded over time and what it actually does. So financial literacy is necessary. Financial maturity is the big thing that we're dealing with right now about dating. Number 3, maturity does not, if it has not reached you in terms of financial literacy, the question is, what does your spending say about you? What does your spending say about you? Because the bottom line of your spending is an indicator, a barometer of what you value. What does your spending say about you? If your spending says about you, you don't care, or if your financial spending says about you, I only care about me, then what's happening with this deal is you're telling the other person, maybe they don't see it yet, maybe they're not financially literate either, and therefore the lack of maturity in this has not, it will reveal to them you didn't help the other person because you didn't pay attention to their illiteracy in the financial area because you were too busy having a McDonald's date time. Dun, 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 dun. We love it. Everything. We just love it. Where we go, what we do. But you're not paying attention to what their conversation is saying about the person you're trying to marry. See, what you think about you can and does show up financially. If you only buy things or your spending deals with you, and you don't even include Thanksgiving to others, Thanksgiving to God, Thanksgiving to community, then you are going to be, if you're not careful, financially concerned about a false trinity. The false trinity is me, myself, and I. And if it's all about me and the Benjamins, baby, and it ain't about you, except that I get from you because I give to you, then I'm not literate financially. And if I'm not literate financially, I'm a problem to a relationship. And when you talk about something, again, that's in our coaching program that we'll talk about later, self-culture is what you want to get. You want to get to the point where you're the adult in the room, married to the adult in the room, not the adult in the room, dating and married to a child. It's not the plan. I'm talking about financially or in maturity, you're married to a child. You may be married to a biological adult, but when it comes down to a mature adult, financially or in the area of your soul, if you're married to a kid, or you're dating a kid, or you keep attracting a kid because you're a kid, there's something you can do about that. So right now, this is just one of many reasons why you might not be married. And here's the final one that we're going to go over. Let's see how we're doing on time. Oh, okay, we're doing good. We caught up. That's good. I wish we had some Q&A time. If you have any questions, you can actually put them in the chat, and we can see just what it is that's going on with you in that area. Okay. Final item here. Final item. Item final is maturity if it has not reached your emotional IQ. If maturity has not reached your emotions, emotions are real. They are like lights, not just lights, camera, action, but like red light, yellow light, green light. Okay, so a red light emotion is telling you that you don't like something. That's a red light emotion. A yellow light emotion is telling you, mm, either way, it means we're not at stop, we're not at go, we're at pause. Okay. A green light emotion deals with we're all in. Whether it's right or not, the emotions are saying to you, we're all in. So check this out. When it comes down to the maturity that reaches your emotions, one of 10 reasons why you may not be married yet. Number one is what sets you off routinely. Let's talk about that. Now, you got to know what that is. Is it a person of another race? A person, which that's not even true because we're really one race, one blood, came from the same mother and father. The Eve, there you go, the Eve gene connects us all. So we're all together. So we're marrying brothers and sisters. Now, right now, we move away from that because of the genetic code. But to begin with, they married brothers and sisters. Just know that that's how it went. They didn't marry aliens. They married people from the same womb, moved apart, and then there came a point when the population growth was such that now don't do that any longer. We're in that stage now. But what sets you off is something you ought to know about. And I think you probably do know. You know, I don't like it when people say things. I don't like when people do things. Everybody has perhaps some things that they don't like. But when you're talking about a relationship, one or 5+ reasons why people don't get married is because they are not in touch with themselves emotionally and their IQ. There's something called an emotional IQ. It's a great book. Someone gave it to me years ago. You may want to read it, just Google it. And inside of that IQ test that they're giving, it's not the intelligence piece, which if you really knew what the IQ test comprised of, you wouldn't be all that excited because yours is high. And you surely wouldn't be that depressed because yours might be low when you understood what it's really testing and how it was derived. But the emotional quotient, how you test you, how you evaluate you when things are hard, it's in the heat of the moment, or things are happy. Everybody's learning process is going to take you through both. So here's the first thing I want you to do. I want you to see if you can stop being set off at the whim, because emotions generally are coming from what is happening outside of us. And the emotion that we bring to bear is a red, yellow, or green version of what we're feeling like. Now, the reason why it's important to get in touch with your feelings is so that you are not led by your feelings. You do realize that sometimes our emotions cannot be trusted. I hope you know that. Sometimes we can't trust our emotions. Our emotions are filled with protection, and you may not even need to be fighting. Sometimes our emotions are filled with fear, and you really shouldn't be afraid. So, red, yellow, and green is real, telling you how you feel, but you've got to know how to get in control of that through, again, something in our coaching that's called self-culture. To be the adult in the room, you got to grow to get to that place, and you can. But right now, I just want you to start with, maybe that's the reason why you're not married, because you always do a thing. You always shut down. I've worked with many couples who the lady just shuts down, and I have to work to help her to trust me, and then help her to trust that it's okay to talk in front of the guy that she's not talking in front of. So that means she doesn't trust men, doesn't trust him, doesn't trust me yet. Once I get trust, then they can begin the conversation, still not trusting fully. But over time, because the red is there, and maybe the yellow is there, And as a person dating, if that's you, you got to pay attention to that and you can't force that. And if you're the one who isn't moving forward, you got to check out why. So maybe the reason that you're not married is because you haven't reached a high EQ, not IQ, EQ, where your emotional quotient is intact. Second thing, do you ever move out of victimhood? Are you perpetually the victim because your emotions tell you you need to protect yourself based upon the relationship? Let me first tell you this. If you are attracting people who keep you a victim, you need to grow beyond this and you do need our coaching program. But if you're the person who is a victim because that's what you learned to do, and so you like to do it because it gets attention, then the reason you may not be married is because you are always the victim in your, here you go, in your emotional IQ. If emotionally you're attracting people who only want to hear how bad it was, but can't help you get beyond it, maybe that's why you're not married, because they realize you're too big of a load emotionally. Why would you stay the victim when victory, is waiting for permission to lease or release itself on you, to grab you and work with you and walk with you? Look, victory is well beyond, as a better life too, than being the victim. A victim because you're female, victim because you're perhaps overweight, victim because you're dark or you're light or you don't have enough money or whatever. You don't have to wear the chains of average as a clothing option anymore. You really don't. But if you think you do, you will. And even if you say you don't and you keep attracting people who see you as a victim or who victimize you, it's in your emotions. And we can teach you how to get out of that. You got to see what to do. You just do. I should have put our link up. I wasn't even thinking about that. I'll do that next time to get on my calendar and have a free strategy session. But for right now, I'm not even dealing with all that. I just want to get the information out to you because I want you to know life can be better when you move out of the victimhood of negative emotions. And then the final piece is maturity. If it has not reached your emotional IQ or your EQ, your emotional quotient, it could be that you cannot outperform the way you feel. If you can't outperform the way you feel, because you shut down, and I ain't saying nothing, maybe that's why you're not married. Could be that you're not married because you tell everybody, and the volume's so loud, folks can't even hear themselves think about how to leave. And I don't know where you are in it, but if you can't outperform your emotions, that's probably a reason why you're not married yet. And you got to learn how to do that. Now, you got a couple of things you can do. You can go to calvintibbs.com, and over there, you're going to find in the website a place for the calendar. You can click on that and we'll schedule some time. Or you can reach out to me on DM, or you can just keep hanging out because every week I'm coming to you with some insights that are going to help you to get better, to get stronger. And I'm going to stay on this 10 reasons why you're not married until we do a masterclass. I think we're going to do a masterclass at the end of the month. We'll tell you how to get signed up for that. In the meantime, though, I hope this helps you. This is the Relationship Doctor. Again, talking to people whose son is trying to set in love. Not talking to the married people just yet. I'm talking to the single people before you get married to help you when you get married. So meanwhile, Relationship Doctor saying thank you for joining us, and we'll see you the next time we get together. And here's to a healed, happy relationship. God bless you.